This episode is brought to you by ChurchMediaHQ.com, our service in which our team supports your church's podcast. Now, we're going to discuss what all this service entails later in this episode, but if you'd rather learn more about it right now, check out ChurchPodcastHQ.com. That's ChurchPodcastHQ.com. Now, speaking of podcast, unfortunately, many churches are still not prioritizing their podcast presence. Either they don't see the value in having one, or they simply don't have the time or expertise to set up and keep up with a podcast. In this episode, our producer, Bo Snyder, and I discuss why you need a podcast, what it takes to start one, and how you can keep your podcast feed engaging with quality content. I'm Luke Clayton, and welcome to Church Media HQ. So let's talk about recording the best audio possible. Okay. That's the goal.
Yep.
Ideally, you're going to record your audio directly from like your sound system.
Through your house,
board. You're through your board, you're wearing a lapel or a flush mic, and it's going to get recorded, directly into your system and whatever. But there's a few reasons why this doesn't always work. First of all, your system may not be configured correctly. Yep. Okay. That's the unfortunate, again, not going to dive in all that, but the unfortunate thing about church soundboards is a lot of times the settings over time, they get so one guy runs it this week and the next guy runs it that week, and it gets kind of messed up.
And they're all self-taught. They got different ways of doing it. Yep.
Yeah, and so that could be part of it. You don't have the right personnel on your soundboard. And that is true. Something to remember when it comes to audio. In-house audio, as far as what you're hearing in the live service, sounds different than what you hear maybe online or what's captured and recorded.
Yes.
And so really the best ones out there, if you will, the best churches out there are actually mixing them independently.
Right.
I understand your ideal system, or ideal method, if you will, is to capture it through the sound system.
Sure.
But hey, some of these limitations are there, whatever you're capturing may sound okay live, but it's not sounding good in person, and you just can't seem to get it right. Or maybe you don't have a sound system, okay? No matter what your reason, when you can't get the clean audio directly from your sound system, then one of the simplest fixes is going to be just to use a dedicated mic for recording your audio.
Right.
So the one we constantly recommend.
One of my favorite tools, man.
And we've, full disclosure, we bought it like 12 times each.
Well spent money.
It's very easy to lose. I will throw that out there.
It is. Yeah, I bought at least three myself.
I think it's so great that I'm not going to jump into that. Anyways, I don't want to accuse anybody of something, but I have reason to believe we've had a couple stolen from us. But they are easy to steal, easy to lose. Anyways, so the Smart Lav, the one I was looking at this morning actually, it was down to $60 for a brand new one, and if you were willing to buy used, you could get it for like 51 or something. That's the cheapest I've ever seen.
The Rode Smart Lav?
Yeah, that's a Smart Lav.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if there's some special on Amazon or whatever,
I don't
know. But if you are going to get one,
10 of them.
I know, right? If you're going to get one, you're going to need to make sure you have one of those Apple Lightning to headphone adapters.
Yep.
Because at this time, it's just using the traditional headphone jack.
The old classic auxiliary.
Yeah, the 3.5 millimeter or whatever. That, man, we have do you? I'm putting you on the spot.
No.
It should be in that bag, actually.
It actually might be.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just we can show it to the viewer audience.
I'm going to see if it's in here.
Yeah, I think it's in the outside pouch there, actually. I remember putting one in there. There we go. There it is.
There it is.
Check it out. Yeah, look it up.
Now, here's the question: is this yours or mine?
That one's yours.
I think this one's mine.
Because mine's in the little bag outside. Yeah,
That's right, yep.
Anyways, and so we've had to buy. Bo owns one. I own one. Yep, there it is. But no, these are really good because they work like a lav, because they are, and then they plug directly into your phone, and you just capture the audio through like your voice memos. I will say, if you buy it, they're going to tell you need to buy some special app for it to work with it. Don't worry about that. Just use your voice memos app, and it works just fine.
And I think I paid $70 for mine. It is the best $70 piece of audio that I've ever. Yeah, it's just great.
Yeah, it is fantastic, and more on that later. I'm actually going to circle back to that here later. But so that is just kind of the basics. And I will tell you this: if you can capture clean audio through a device like this Smart Lav or through your system, that just to the average listener sounds clean, sounds crisp, sounds somewhat professional, and just taking that file and posting it as is, honestly, bravo to you.
It's actually good enough.
That
it really is.
And I would argue that it's sufficient, and if you never did anything more than that, you would probably be fine. But if you want to add some extras, you want to kind of say, hey, I want to add some of the bells and whistles, whatever, okay? Now, we're kind of trying to, as we go along here in this early part, keep track of like time. Okay. So right now, your current post-production time, the editing, the uploading, you might be at 30 to 60 minutes per sermon. Okay. This is saying like, okay, I have to take the sermon or take the whole service. I have to trim out the worship part and then just start when the sermon is or whatever. I don't know. That's where I'm at, Bo. You tell me if I'm off on that.
No, once again, I would err to the side a little bit longer.
Yep.
I would. And once again, everything is different. There's times when, even when we do these podcast episodes, there were times when if we'd mess up, we would just stop and go back and like, no, we just keep going. No more.
Now if we mess up, we're just like, just leave it. We're like, hey, everybody, we messed up. Get over it. Dude, I remember I was so picky about stuff early on.
You were very picky.
I was like, I said
It was an editing nightmare for like the first 6 months.
Now I'm just like, hey, whatever. I mean, anyways.
But no, I'd say that time is pretty realistic.
Like full disclosure, you were just watching, and you don't know this, but I'm going to tell everybody. There was a segment there, if you're watching on video, where Bo was talking, but you could hear him and not see him. And that's because the phone here that's recording you just stopped.
Oh, I was wondering why. Okay.
But you were like, what are you playing with it? So anyways, but now we just kind of let stuff like that be. So if you're out there and you don't like it, leave us a comment. And
make your own podcast.
Keep listening. So here's some of the extras. Okay, so if you wanted a podcast intro and or outro, like, hey, welcome to the so-and-so podcast. Here at our church, we blah, blah, blah. Kind of a little nice music in the background. And now enjoy today's sermon. And then it goes to that. Okay.
Pretty good. Nice job.
So this is going to add at least an hour if you want to produce like a one-time hour, if you want to produce like a quality segment. Okay, so I want to make a good intro that's got the nice music. To record it, you could hire out a professional voiceover to kind of save you from having to record it. But even if you're going to take that, edit it, mix it in, it's going to take at least an hour. And I'm probably being very, very conservative on that estimate.
I'll be very conservative.
But that's just that one time. And then every time you want to edit that in your episode, I would look at about 15 minutes. Because you got to take it, plug it, fade it in right. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
Of course.
It doesn't take you 15 minutes.
No, but still, it takes attention to detail.
Yep.
It's still, even for me, I've probably edited hundreds of episodes at this point, but it takes time. It does.
Yep. So that's just keep in mind, like that's a great feature, but that's what you're looking at in terms of more time commitment. Now, it's a really good idea. And I would probably prioritize this before. And this is in no particular order in terms of priority, but I would actually prioritize this over adding an intro. Normalizing and optimizing your audio.
Yes.
We use a tool, and we have used in the past. I don't think we're having to use it as much anymore because we've kind of got some of our optimization kind of built into the system now. But there's a tool I stumbled upon years ago called auphonic.com. That's AUPHONIC.com.
I still use it.
You still? Okay, So you are still using it.
Yep, and it is a fantastic tool.
So what this does basically is you give them the audio file, you upload it. They kind of have this AI or whatever, like intelligent system that processes it, normalizes it. That means, if I was talking really quiet and then I talk louder, it would kind of normalize that to where it didn't sound like extreme highs and lows.
And even better when we have two guests like this, it kind of breaks it to where it's even, because somebody could be swallowing the mic, somebody could, so it kind of just makes
somebody could be heavily breathing into it like I have before. Now we're trying to lean away.
Yes, but, that is a big help.
So and it also does a couple other things of like just optimizing the audio. So, but hey, this is going to add 30 plus minutes to every, because you've got to upload it, let it process, whatever. Bo, you would know better than me.
As Luke is reading this, he's realizing how much work I do on this.
Yeah, I'm like, well,
no, he knows. But no, it's absolutely right that you're right on with these things.
Yeah.
And
so then I think the next thing is going to be your description and your notes. Now, I will tell you this. If all you're doing is just like here is I don't have a stat on this because I couldn't really find one, but from what I understand and what I have read, podcast descriptions aren't always read. And so we actually keep ours intentionally pretty minimum.
We do. We do.
And that's because it's one of those things at this time, it's just not, the return on it, if you will, just isn't worth it.
It's not worth you sitting there for 30 minutes just thinking about, it's
like
not
we're
worth
going to
it.
include a couple of these links in the show notes here, but
if we have a series going on, we'll say this is part 4
like, hey,
or
this
something.
is part 4 of our podcast series, Bo's with us, that type of thing. We'll put on some type of thing like, hey, learn more at ChurchMediaHQ.com. But, for the most part, we're keeping it very basic. Again, this comes down to like we keep using like the Dave Ramsey example. Like if you have a podcast with that many listeners, well, if you've got millions of listeners, adding a little link that is a link to like buy one of their products, that one link alone could represent hundreds or thousands of dollars in sales.
Of course.
Whereas, hey, if you don't have a fat audience like that, well, it really not going to make a huge difference.
Right,
It's going to move the needle.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of one. He does a leadership podcast where he actually when he says show notes, he means like his outline of what he actually like. Some people really get into that, which is great. It's a good resource. But for the average, probably don't need to spend a ton of time.
And I can see, a pastor wanting to put like his outline maybe in the show notes, especially if you're the kind that like you give out outlines, before you preach. But if you're going to do this, if you're going to develop out these show notes to be, if you're going to do the minimum, you're probably looking at, 10, 15 minutes to just get the minimums in there, copy and paste, whatever. Again, you'll get faster at it over time.
Sure.
But if you are going to make more developed ones, you could be looking at another hour or so of, hey, we've got to develop out these notes and whatever. And so let's kind of get up to our running total here. So estimated post-production total time with all the extras. If you added all these extras, the intro, the normalizing, the advanced podcast notes, you're probably looking at 90 plus minutes of post-production work per episode. This doesn't include you actually preaching the sermon, preparing the sermon.
It's kind of scary how close to how good these estimates are, because that's about right.
Well, it's kind of like we've done this.
We've done this a few times.
So you have been hearing throughout this podcast, we're taking breaks here and there where we are talking about our podcast service that we actually offer. And it's like we said, this is something that it's kind of a limited service that we offer. We don't let a ton of people in, if you will, because we want to be able to give attention to these podcasts that we are working with. We want to make sure they're successful.
Right. Everything that we just said, we want to be able to do, because there's people, there's podcasts that I stopped listening to because it was like, you're not doing any of these things.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've just got a nasty mic next to a highway, and it's like, dude, this is bad.
Oh, man, I would tell you this, total side note, I try to keep up. Because of connection culture, I keep up with because that's a little bit more about the consumer side of things. So I keep up with the tech world a little bit. Okay. Dude, there's a couple of them out there, these tech podcasts. It's like, dude, you guys are techie. You should be good, and your audio sounds like garbage.
Yes.
So, anyways, that's a total side note. But anyways, so we offer this but only to a handful of accounts and churches because we want to be able to make sure it's successful. So you've heard throughout, like I said, you've probably at this point heard the plug once or twice. But we do want to we want to tell you that, hey, if you're interested in this, check it out. It's ChurchPodcastHQ.com, and just listen to our other spots on it. We do have something in the show notes about this if you want to learn more. Okay, so we basically established that this takes time, and if you want to, but it's important. It takes time. So it's like we said, whether you hire it to someone, us, or anybody out there, or do it yourself, or delegate it to someone that's already working for you, just understand the time commitment that it takes. And maybe if you're going to delegate it to someone working for you, one of your assistant pastors or whatever, come on. Keep in mind, like, okay, well, I just gave him an extra 90 minutes or so, well, maybe more, maybe 2+ hours a week worth of work to keep up with it. But I would still argue it's important and it's something you need to do. Well, thanks for joining us for this episode, and don't forget to subscribe. You can check the show notes and video description to learn more about products and services from Church Media HQ, as well as details about the show's guest and content contributors. If you find this content helpful, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star review and share this episode with other church leaders like you. Also, be sure to check out our newest show, Connection Culture, available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Church Media HQ is a production of the Must Increase Network. The show is edited and produced by Bo Snyder. The creator and executive producer is myself, Luke Clayton. And until next time, I want to remind you to try something new at your church. Why? Well, because you know that it's so much better to fail at trying the incredible than it is to succeed at doing just the average. We'll see you next time right here on Church Media HQ.